Let's make some noise. This is the zenith of hard rock and metal conversation.
And that's everything that I love.
Trunk Nation.
Just an amazing show.
With Eddie Trunk.
Hey, how are you guys? It's a Thursday edition of Trunk Nation. And yes, we are live at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern Time on this 19th day of February, 2026. And the day that heavy metal was really born, and I'll explain that here in a second. But hope you're doing well, and thank you for hanging with me as we talk rock for a couple hours each and every day here on Trunk Nation in this window live. And, of course, you can listen anytime using the SiriusXM app. Make sure you use that app. It is your friend to get caught up on past shows, interviews, and more. Also, don't forget, we have some video content, not only on the app, but also the more recent video content you'll find on the YouTube channel, simply at my name. And just added to that yesterday is the most recent interview with Dave Mustaine. So that's up there now for you to check out in video form if you'd like. You can have a look at that. Dave talking about his album with Megadeth entering the charts at number 1. Now, I know that it took a pretty big drop in week 2, as was expected. Joel, do you happen to know where the Megadeth album is right now on the charts? I'd be curious, because now we're in like week 3.
I'll get us a check. Yeah, I'll get us a check. But we were in the 50s last week for week 2.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's this is the way it is. I say it all the time. It's unfortunate. Nobody can kind of break that trend, but it's the way the marketing is with new music today, where it's all about the first week, and after week 2, it's free fall central, just because all that marketing and push is up front. What do you got?
It's at 89 this week.
I mean, look, 50s to 80s in week 3 is way better than most. We saw the Bon Jovi record go completely off the charts after, I think, week 2 or week 1. So that actually is respectable to be hanging in there like that. But you can still see where it's going. And probably in the next week or 2, it'll be completely off the charts. It's crazy. But again, it's just the way all of the marketing is done in advance and the push towards the first week number, and there is no sustained support on any of these records unless you're a pop act. If you're a pop act, I would imagine, I don't follow the pop world all that closely, but if you're a pop act and you go 4 or 5 singles deep and you're living off of radio and radio is a thing for you, then yeah, you're going to maybe get a little hang time on the charts and a little ebb and flow. But for most of these records that are rock or metal leaning, or certainly classic rock leaning, new music from a classic rock artist, it's all front loaded and there is no sustained radio. There is no real radio support and marketing support. So we see that happen all the time, but that's pretty good for Megadeth. I'm happy to hear that they're still hanging in there and still in the top 100 in week 3. We're going to get the announcement on a music festival very near and dear to my heart. That is Rocklahoma, near and dear to my heart because I've hosted every one of them since it started back in 2007. I will again this coming Labor Day weekend. And I'm being told that they are going to announce, I believe, on Monday, the lineup for this year's Rocklahoma. So just heard about that a little while ago. We'll certainly cover that when it comes out. Today, we're going to be taking your calls and doing a phone-driven show on your top dual threats. And what we mean by that are musicians that do 2 things equally well. Could be great singer / guitar player, could be great bass player / singer, could be great keyboard player / guitar player, could be great drummer / singer. The dual threats, as we call them in music. You can give me 3. You can give me 1. You could give me the one that's the real standout for you. You can give me a couple favorites. We're not necessarily doing a ranking here today, but this is something that comes up quite a bit. And Joel thought it would be a good idea to do that with you guys today and have you call in. And we've never done that. We've talked about it, but we've never done it on the air. So today, your calls on your favorite dual threat musicians. And of course, our number, as usual, is 844-686-5863, 844-686-5863. So you can call in those dual threats. Of course, yesterday we had Criss Angel hanging out. Always fun to talk to him in studio. And Chris got into more details about the imminently approaching shows with Alice Cooper that he is going to be in and producing and doing magic around while Alice performs with his band and full rock show. So that's really cool, and I'm excited to see that. I'm bummed that I can't go to the initial opening shows because, again, I'll be out of town. It's happening here in Vegas, as you heard yesterday, but I will catch 1 or 2 of those shows before they wrap it up. So it's good to get caught up with Chris on that front. Tomorrow, of course, is Friday, so you know the drill, Free For All Friday. Now, we didn't do a Free For All Friday last week because I had guests in studio in L.A. Last week we had Blackie Lawless on Friday, and last week in L.A., a week from today, we had Zach Wilde in studio. Both were great interviews. Both you can hear on the app if you missed it, and we'll have video of Zach coming soon. So free for all with nothing but your calls, and any spillover from today's show will likely happen tomorrow as well. Let me give you some news, and then we'll get to your dual threats. So, few things to talk about today. Speaking of festival announcements, Summerfest in Milwaukee. Now, I just saw this online earlier today. I don't know if they had announced this earlier anywhere, but I just picked up on it. Summerfest in Milwaukee is a huge event. And it basically takes place most of June into the first weekend of July. It goes over multiple days and basically takes up a month. And they put on, now I've never been to it, but just looking at it from the outside, the lineup of what they put on there is unbelievable. And it is, it's massive. I cannot even begin to imagine the talent budget and what they spend on these acts, because they have a ton of bands and some of the biggest acts currently in the world, a lot from the pop world, along with a bunch of other acts. Now, I know what some of these bands get paid for a gig. And as I'm looking down that rundown, there are bands that are like in the middle tier that I know don't play for less than $150,000 a show. And they're like, now on some events, that's the top billed act. Summerfest, those bands are like in the middle of the pack in terms of billing. So the bands closing every day are getting multiple, like multi-million-dollar guarantees just for a show. So I can't imagine the budget that they have to pay talent. But they do it every year, and it's obviously super successful. And it's a mixed lineup. It's got every sort of genre of music you could imagine mixed in. I believe there's multiple stages. But I'll just read you some of the rock acts that are a part of Summerfest, which again takes place in Milwaukee. And this year it includes Styx, David Lee Roth, so we know Roth is back out there again. Candlebox, who another band that said they were done and retired and clearly is not. NBEE, Buck Cherry, Wolf Mother, So Wolfmother and Andrew Stockdale coming over from Australia to do some U.S. stuff. Megadeth, who we just talked about. Hailstorm. Gene Simmons, who is back out there this year with his solo band and is, I believe, the first show that he does of 2026 is either tonight or tomorrow night. I'm told that the set list has been revised and some things have been tightened up after much was made of the song selection last year when Gene debuted this project, and also the presentation of it. A lot of talking, a lot of storytelling, a lot of covers. It just was not what people wanted or expected. So I'm hearing that has been significantly tightened up and revised for the best. So we'll see about that after the first few shows take place, which I believe they play tonight or tomorrow somewhere. But Gene is part of the Summerfest as well. Also Soul Asylum, who I was happy to see on this. Hopefully that means some other shows for them. I know Dave has gone out and done acoustic shows, but this, I would imagine, would be a full electric show, so hopefully more get announced as well. So again, this all takes place June and the first weekend of July in Milwaukee. Ton of other acts on this, mostly from other genres of music, and I may have missed some rock stuff scattered in there as well, but there are a ton of bands on this thing, so it's hard to almost read all of it. This is also an interesting note. Making the rounds today comes news that William Shatner, yes, Captain Kirk, is planning to release a metal album. Yes, you heard me right. So we had a rock album from Dolly Parton a couple years ago. And now William Shatner preparing a metal album. How old, Joel, is William Shatner? Look that up for me. I believe he is well into his 90s. I could be wrong on that, but I believe
No, you're
90s.
right. He is 94.
94.
Yeah, he'll be 95 next month.
95. He's going to be 95 years old next month. And I believe he is one of only two people from the original Star Trek that is still alive. George Takei obviously is still with us. I'm not sure if Walter Koenig is still with us, who was Chekhov. Joel, look that up for me. I'm curious if Chekhov is still alive. There might be three. If Chekhov is still alive, then there's three.
Yes, he's 89.
Oh, okay. So we got three. It's three of the original Trekkers still with us. But Shatner, in his mid-90s, first of all, the guy looks great for his age. And he's still super active. I mean, for a long time he rode horses. I don't know if he's still doing that. But, you know, he does speaking shows and shows up at Star Trek conventions and is just, I mean, that is amazing. That man at 95 years old is still that on it. And he looks that great. I mean, whatever he's had done, you know, whatever wig, whatever, God bless him, man. That is crazy. Got all his marbles. He's still got, you know, wit about him. I mean, that is, we should all be so lucky. So anyway, now, in his mid-90s, William Shatner is going to roll out a record that he says is very much a metal record that is going to feature 35 guest musicians on it. Now, I'm not entirely clear on this, and I think there might be some misreporting on this, because the press release that went out about this record, first of all, it does not say the exact release date for the album. They haven't let that out yet. They just say later this year. It's basically a teaser press release. They also say They name check Zakk Wylde, who of course was just on with us last week. I would have asked him about this if I would have known. And they also name check Ritchie Blackmore and Henry Rollins. But if you read the press release in a certain way, it references that those are people that I believe the way it's worded that Shatner had worked with in the past, because he has dabbled in rock and rock covers in the past. So I'm not sure if they're using those names as like past people he's collaborated with, or that those will also be on this record. But they just say more details to come, and there will be 35 guests from the world of rock on the record. They also say that his interest in doing this was driven by a guest appearance on a coming record from a project called Nuclear Messiah, where he provides a spoken word segment. This project features Chris Poland, former Megadeth guitarist. So more to come. I'm not sure if the people being reported on this, again, were past people he's worked with or also a part of this, because it's a little murky the way it reads, or at least the way I read it in the press release. Also, they say the album will be a mix of metal cover tunes and a few originals. Shatner has done albums of all kinds of music, for better or worse. You know, the legendary version of Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, which you've probably heard. But this time tackling metal. And I have already put the request in, because it would be an honor to have Mr. Shatner on this show to discuss this project. And they got back to me immediately, by the way, and they said they're still figuring everything out. When they get a little closer to knowing his availability and the release of the record, they will let us know. So that's really interesting. There have been a variety of activities announced today. This year coming up will be would have been the 80th birthday of AC/DC singer Bon Scott. Bon actually died on this day back in 1980. He was found dead in a vehicle after a night of heavy drinking. Apparently, at the time, drinking and partying with UFO guitarist Paul Chapman, who I believe, if I have the story straight and believe what I heard, Bon Scott actually went to see UFO. And then after the show, he and Paul Chapman went out drinking, and he never made it into his apartment and just died in his car, I believe, out front of the apartment. Paul Chapman, who also passed away more recently, and who replaced Michael Schenker in UFO and made amazing records with UFO in the early 80s. His nickname, if you don't know Paul Chapman, his nickname was Tonka. And the reason why he had that nickname is because he was known as such a legendary partier that people could not believe the amount he could take in and still function and rebound the next day and play gigs. So if you're old enough to remember Tonka toy trucks, the tagline on Tonka trucks was that they were indestructible. Thus, this guy, Paul Chapman, earning the nickname Paul Tonka Chapman because he seemed to be indestructible. So him and Bon Scott being party brothers, a unbelievably potent combination and duo right there. And in 1980, on this day, it cost Bon Scott his life, sadly, and Paul Chapman died much more recently, though. I think Paul Chapman died about 3-4 years ago. I remember I had Paul Chapman on my show over on Hair Nation. It was before this show existed. So it was more than 10 years ago. But Paul Chapman was playing with a band, and he was coming through New York. And I had him in studio for a pretty lengthy interview. It might be online somewhere. I've got to see if I can find it. And I do, if my memory serves me right, I'm pretty sure I talked to Paul Chapman about that night with Bon Scott. And I believe he shared some memories and stories about it, because there was definitely a connection between him, the two of them. So anyway, coming up later this year in July would have been Bon Scott's 80th birthday. So his family and the estate are starting to roll out special events and commemorative things to celebrate what would have been Bon's birthday. Some of those include various celebrations around the world, a line of collectibles, a line of merch, and various other tributes. I can also tell you, and I can't give you too much on this just yet, but I can tell you this. I have been directly in contact with the Bon Scott estate, and I am currently working with them on putting together what could be a very, very, very cool event related to Bon Scott and his 80th birthday here in Vegas. When I can share more on that, I will, but it's in the early stages, but it is exciting and could be super, super cool. But I am working with the estate right now on that and that idea. So more on that when I can share, but some events have been announced today, and you can say there will be more to come. Bruce Dickinson has had some of his solo albums redone in Atmos. We've talked about this. I've talked about it a bit. This new surround sound format, relatively new, that is having a lot of artists take their master recordings back into studios and having engineers remix them in this new surround sound. Some being released on Blu-ray, which is the only way you can really hear it physically. Others, predominantly being heard on Apple Music. Apple is the one behind this format, backing it. And as a result, now I don't think Apple has it exclusively now. You may be able to, if you have Spotify, Pandora, whatever streaming platforms you may have, you may have the ability to hear it there as well. I'm not sure if they've licensed it out to them. For a little while, I'm pretty sure it was exclusive to Apple because they launched it and put money behind it, and still are. But regardless, if you're a fan of Bruce Dickinson's Skunkworks album and also the Tattooed Millionaire album, those are now available and released in this new surround sound format. Some of the stuff, it gives these records a whole new dimension, a whole new vibe. You listen to it, it's like a, pretty radically different sounding thing, and sometimes very cool. It just depends upon the source material and how much they have to work with and how much they can do with it, the way it was recorded and the type of record it is. But we have seen this with a lot of records, Blu-rays being included in a lot of box sets. We had Steven Wilson on, who does a lot of the remixing of this, of these artists in Atmos. I don't believe Steven Wilson did these, but we talked about the process when he was on not too long ago. So they continue to hang with this format. As I've said in the past, this is not the first surround sound format. It's pretty much like the sixth that's been rolled out over the decades. Very few of them stick and go commercial and get to the point where everybody listens in that way and can listen in that way. But this one has more of a shot than any in becoming more mainstream because Apple is behind it, and because in some new cars, they are now integrating Atmos into the speaker systems in the cars. And that's never been done before with previous surround sound formats, I don't believe. So what will happen there is if you have a newer car and you've got a real high-end audio system in there, you could conceivably plug your phone in to the car, go on Apple, or I believe the other services too now, find an album that's done in Atmos, whether it's old or new, select listen like that, and hear it while you're driving in this total surround sound format. Which could be bad, now that I think about it. Because if you have some album with a lot of sound effects on it, or maybe like a car horn effect, or something like that, you could potentially like be thrown and have an accident. I'll tell you, and this is a weird thing, but I'm being honest about this. I believe it should be illegal for radio commercials to have a car horn sound effect in them. I'm telling you, I have been driving around. This has happened to me more than once. And I have heard a car commercial, a commercial for anything, whatever it's for, that has a car horn beep in it that sounds so real and so present that it's made me jam on the brakes because I feel like I'm being beeped at or there's something imminent, somebody's hitting a horn in front of me. I've been saying that for years. I don't think I've ever said it publicly or on the radio, but I believe it just sounds like a stupid, ridiculous thing. But I'm telling you, maybe it's happened to you. You got the radio on in the background. Let's be honest. A lot of times when it goes to a commercial break, you turn it down or you do something else or you divert to something else. And all of a sudden you hear a car horn in the background. You're like, whoa, you go for the break. It's natural instinct. But it's not an actual car horn, somebody beeping at you. It's the friggin' radio in the background. I don't think you should be allowed to have car horn effects in radio commercials or sweepers production elements on radio. Call me crazy, but if it's happened to you, you understand. So if you take a record and you have a very surround sound sort of format driving in your car where the thing can be all over in your ears and you have that effect, you can imagine it could potentially be a little distracting, but my car doesn't have this, so I'm not worried about it just yet, but it's interesting potential issue. And of course, the other way you can hear this format is if you get Apple Pro, you got to get the Pro earbuds. And then you can select Atmos and you can get it somehow through just the two earbuds in your ear. What else do I have for you today? Big news in terms of record release. Foo Fighters have announced a new album. We have been talking about Foo Fighters and their gradual ramp up to full-blown activity again after the Dave Grohl stuff. And they are back in full throttle with a full tour and now the announcement of a brand new studio album called Your Favorite Toy. It'll come out on April 24th. The title track to the album was released today. Dave Grohl still has not done one interview since he revealed that he fathered a child, out of wedlock. He still remains with his family and with his wife. We don't know anything more about that situation since he was transparent about it, got out in front of it, announced it. I believe it's a couple years ago at this point. As we know, went greatly underground for a long time, but is now fully back out there. However, has not done one interview. And now you wonder, it's pretty much the only thing left for him not being full back. And you wonder if he does do an interview, obviously, if that's something that will come up, if he'll be told it's off limits, we don't know. But Dave back out there, full throttle with Foo Fighters and now with new music coming as well. Again, release date is April 24th. I've not heard the track yet. Maybe Joel can play us a little bit of it as we go into our first break here in a second. We're going to get to your top dual threats here in a second, so stand by. I'm coming to you on the phones. But a couple other quick notes here. There's a lot made of an interview that Journey keyboardist Jonathan Cain did with the website Ultimate Classic Rock. We know Journey is doing a farewell tour. We know that there is nonstop speculation, drama, etc. in the Journey camp about what they are and are not doing, who is and is not in the band, who is and who is not arguing or fighting with each other. So Jonathan Cain, in this interview, was asked, since this is a Journey farewell tour, have they reached out to Steve Perry about taking part in it? And Jonathan Cain revealed in the interview that, in fact, they did. And Steve Perry did not say yes, but he did not rule it out at some point. And basically the way they presented it to him was, hey, we're going to be out on the road for a while. The fans would love to see you. Come out to any show. We'd love to have you. We'd love to have you. You want to get up and do a few songs, people would love to have you do that, see you do that. Now, that's all great. But, you know, the media landscape we are in and everybody wanting their clickbaits are basically running with this story that, you know, I think very much tilting it towards Steve Perry doing this. Just for clarity, Steve Perry never said he would do it. He just didn't say there's no way I'll do it and I'm not doing it. He kind of left it open. So, okay, if you are somebody hoping for that, that's better than absolutely not, no way. But I think it's also a far cry from, and you know, the way the internet, of course, will paint it, Steve Perry's back in Journey. Because if you go to Steve Perry and ask him, you know, I don't think he's going to be in a place where he would say, no fucking way am I doing that. And he's also not going to be in a place where he's like, yes, I'm in, let's go do it. You know, he's probably going to respectfully just keep it kind of vague. And, you know, that's my read on it. And that's my read from having personally asked Steve Perry that question about 9 years ago on this show. I told you guys that story many times. I imagine there's probably not a lot of people, because when we started this show 10 years ago this year, you know, it was a brand new channel at the time, and it was, you know, we had to build audience. So that was early in the goings of this show, but if there's people out there that have been with me since day one for this show, you may remember that interview. And he came in studio. It was when Steve put out that solo record. And we talked about all this. And the same deal, he was very respectful about Journey and the whole thing. And Neil Sean, during that interview, while Steve Perry was in the studio, was texting me to connect him. That was a surreal thing for me, to connect him with Steve Perry, to tell Steve to call him, to tell Steve he'd love to have him do stuff. So my point is, this has been going on for 10 years. But I think the angle here is Journey is alleging they are ending, and I say alleging because you know my no band ever ends bit. But that's the play to Steve Perry. Hey, one last time, not do a whole set, do some songs. We'll see. You know, the other angle with Journey, as this farewell thing gets ready to happen, is the thing that the question marks around their current singer, Arnel Pineda, who's been in the band for a long time, who did not appear with the band on a couple of their recent TV appearances, drummer Dean Castronovo sang lead vocals. And also there was video making the rounds of Arnel doing a solo show in his home area of the Philippines and struggling vocally. But Jonathan Cain did confirm that Arnel will be with the band. He is rested. He is good. He is ready to go. And he was dealing with some family domestic issues back in the Philippines, which is why he did not appear with the band on one of their performances. But then again, I don't know. One of the things, I don't think Jonathan Cain did it either. So, there's definitely always some flux with Journey as to what's going on. And hey, we're going to talk about dual threats here in a second, meaning people that do two things equally well in a band. One guy that could be in that conversation very easily is Dean Castronovo, the drummer in Journey, because that guy sings amazingly well. So there you go. Plays drums well, sings well. So we'll continue to follow that story. I personally, and I hope I'm wrong on this, I don't think there's much there with the Steve Perry thing. I think it's probably him just being nice, but you never know. If he popped up and did a couple songs somewhere, it would be obviously a huge moment. And I hope it happens. The jam band Phish announced some shows in July, including 4 dates at Madison Square Garden. They'll also be returning to the Sphere here in Vegas in April. And also today, it is, I said at the top of the show today that you could make the case that heavy metal was born on this day. Now, we know that it was recently 56 years ago that the first Sabbath album was released, which is widely considered to be the first ever heavy metal record in the birth of metal. But 78 years ago today, the man that is widely regarded as the godfather, founding father of metal was born. So if you want to get technical, the way I look at it is metal was born on this day 78 years ago, because today is the birthday of the great Tony Iommi, who, of course, has been a guest on this show several times and has become a friend over the decades, and love Tony, and it's an honor to have him as a friend. And I texted him a happy birthday a little while ago. I mentioned to you that I was in touch with his manager a day or two ago about having him on. It's been a little while since we visited with him. Last was right after Back to the Beginning. So we'll see. He does have projects coming. There are reissues, but there's also, I believe, some new music coming. So we will have some stuff to talk about, and I'm sure at some point in the near future, the Godfather will return to the program. But happy 78th birthday to him today. Joel, anything you have?
Well, we did get an announcement from Youngblood yesterday. It turns out he's got a second part to his Idols album, and it's dropping tomorrow. It's a part 2. It's got 6 tracks, and it includes the Smashing Pumpkins collaboration that he did on his song, remake of his song Zombie. I'll let you talk about that for a minute, and then I have birthdays to shout out.
Yeah, so that was interesting. So we've seen this happen twice this week alone, which is kind of like a total counter to what I talked about earlier, where all of these artists release 5 songs before the record comes out, push for the first week chart number, and then things go away very quickly because so much is pushed out in advance of the release, and that's been the model. But the counter to that, the total 180 to that, seems to be surprise releasing a record. Like putting out nothing in advance of it and just saying, oh, by the way, tomorrow we're putting out a new record. Which, of course, with everybody getting their music predominantly through streaming, you can do. You really couldn't do that when it was exclusively physical formats because you needed time to promote and press the record, although you could keep it secret, obviously, but you needed set up with the stores to carry it and what have you. Now, I'm sure there's going to be physical releases on this still, and they have a way to do it, but, yesterday it was U2, oh, here's an EP, and also later in the day yesterday, after we were off the air, Youngblood, oh, by the way, here's a new record. In this case, again, an EP. Now, when Youngblood was on with us, if you listen to that interview, and again, the video's on YouTube, the audio's on the app, he did reference this. He did say that there was a sequel to his current record already done. And then after that would be the follow-up that, I was hoping and pushing him to do, total raw rock record, which, again, he might be working on now. But he had, I guess, over-recorded tracks and decided to do 2 separate releases. So, as Joel said, that'll be out tomorrow. What else did you want to mention, Joel?
A couple of more birthdays besides Tony Iommi. We have Loverboy's Paul Dean celebrating a big birthday today. He's turning 80. Happy birthday to Doug Aldridge, Burton C. Bell, and Todd LaTorre.
Wow, a lot of birthdays today, and most of those people I know, so happy birthday to all of them, and that's a big one for Paul Dean, 80 years old. Paul Dean, of course, is the guitar player in Loverboy, still active, still touring, still sounding great. And the thing that people don't realize with Loverboy is that Paul Dean was in bands in Canada prior to Loverboy's first album. Loverboy was not his first band. So he probably, where most people, their debut album and their first band, they're in their early 20s. Paul Dean was probably a bit older because he had already done some stuff that was kind of off the radar in America. So happy birthday to all of those gentlemen, and also Doug Aldridge being a cancer survivor. Those birthdays, very special. So happy birthday to all. All right, thank you for that, Joel. So again, we are going to turn our attention now to you guys on the phones and do the show we talked about today. And I know we had a pretty long open here with a lot of stuff going on. Tomorrow's Free for All Friday, so spill over tomorrow if you don't get through today. But as we talked about in yesterday's show, today we are going to talk about and hear from you on your favorite dual threats. What we mean by that is a musician who does 2 things in a band extremely well. Now, again, keep this in mind. Most musicians play more than one instrument or do more than one thing in their band. We want to keep this to people who are extraordinarily great at both things, meaning that when you listen to this person, you're not sure if you like them better as a singer or a guitar player, or as a drummer or as a singer, whatever the combination is, that you just like, I don't know if I like the guy's voice more or his guitar playing more. So that's really the dual threat. Dual threat, most people play guitar and sing. Most people play bass and sing. There's a lot of that. Most people might also be able to play keyboards. We're talking really that are so good that you don't know which one you like better. And I want to hear your thoughts on those people that you feel fit that category. 844-686-5863 is the number. A guy that comes to mind for me, Richie Kotzen. Don't know if I like his singing or his guitar playing more. It's incredible, both. Dave Meniketti from Y&T, same deal, singing, guitar playing. John Sykes, same deal. Sykes not known as like a phenomenal singer, like in most circles, but I loved his voice and obviously loved his guitar playing as well. So those are 3 that come to my mind for me personally right off the top of my head. But there's tons more, obviously, and I want to hear from you, your thoughts. So go ahead, Joel. We'll go to the break. We'll come back. We'll hear from you on dual threats the rest of the way here on...
With Eddie Trunk, bands call him for advice on their set list. Sirius XM's Faction Talk. Sirius XM's Faction Talk. If it has anything to do with hard rock and metal, he's talking about it.
I've always been a fan. It's just damn good.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
Fucking amazing.
All right, you guys love when we do these call-in shows, man. These topic-driven things. It's great. People tell me all the time. It just gets them going and just reminds them of just, growing up into this music and the crazy debates that we have and just the stuff we talk about. So that's what it's all about, man. It's always fun to dig in on this this sort of stuff. And today we're going to do a topic we've never done before, which is dual threats. As I mentioned, two people. One person that does two things extraordinarily well to the point that, I don't know which one I like better. I don't know if I like his voice better or his playing better or his bass playing better or his keyboard playing better, the dual threats. So let's get into it with you on the phone and see what you have to say about this today. Again, 844-686-5863. We start in Tampa, Florida. Here's Kenny as our first caller. Go ahead, Ken.
Father Ed. After last week's interview with Zach, you'll forever be Father Ed now.
He's been calling me that forever, but I'm not the only one. He puts father in front of other people too. But yes, I've been Father Ed for probably 20 years.
Tony was Lord Iommi.
Tony is Lord. Yeah, I'm Father. I've not graduated. You'd think after doing this 43 years, I could get to Lord status. I would love that. Actually, maybe we could I could work on him for that.
You're right. And Edward was King Edward.
Yeah, right. Fittingly, yes. There should be no higher, for Iommi and Edward Van Halen, there should be no higher titles. They should have the ultimate titles for sure.
Exactly. And so real quick, before we get to my dual threat, an idea for a top 5, top 10 album instrumentals. Not live solos, but album instrumentals. Eruption, Spanish Fly, stuff like that. A Coast to Coast for the Scorpions. Switch 3625 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Top.
La Via Strangiato by Rush. Fractured Mirror by Ace Frehley, which we just talked about yesterday with Chris Angel. Yeah, I like it. We'll put that on the list for sure, Kenny. Top album instrumentals. I like it.
Good deal. So my dual threat, and it really doesn't do it in concert, but I'm a Dream Theater nut. And again, Zach brought up Father John last week. But have you ever seen the videos of Jordan Rudess, the keyboard player, where he's doing his parts on the keyboard while doing Petrucci's parts on a guitar sitting in his lap? He also does the pedal steel guitar, which everybody thinks is, a freaking country instrument. He can play that, and he does do that in concert.
Wait, so Jordan Rudess plays guitar in Dream Theater as well?
Follow him on Instagram and look at some of the videos he has put on there, where it's insane what he can do on a guitar.
So wait, what on these videos, is he playing guitar with one hand and keyboards with the other?
Yes, sir.
And it's not something programmed. He's actually playing it because he's like a programming genius too, that guy.
He is, exactly. I wouldn't think. It was just something, 2 or 3, maybe even longer than that. Time flies. But I follow him on, I follow the guys on Instagram. And he started putting it, he got some new guitar, and he's like, oh, yeah, and he's just playing it normal. And then next thing you know, the videos are coming out where he's doing, I can't think of a specific song, where he's literally doing his keyboard parts and the guitar parts, left-handed, while he's doing the keyboards right-handed.
Yeah, now see, that's a perfect example, and that's going to be a cool thing about doing this today. And thank you, Kenny. I appreciate it. Got to move on. That's going to be a cool thing about doing this today, because we're going to hear about stuff that I don't know, you don't know. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Jordan Rudess played guitar like that. I had no idea. Doesn't surprise me, given that all those guys in Dream Theater are like virtuosos, that they could all probably do a little of everything. But to do it extraordinarily well, I have no idea. that was possible. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously Portnoy's the guy that I know best in that band, a close friend, obviously, but I don't know if Mike plays anything besides drums. I mean, they all went to Berkeley. I'm sure he does, but that's an interesting first one. I did not know. That's not, and to his point, to Kenny's point, that's not something he does. He does it on social media, but he doesn't do it in the band, so you wouldn't really know that. Because in the band, when they play live, he's exclusively behind the keyboards. Another caller in Florida. This is Rick in Palm Beach. Go ahead, Rick.
Hey, Eddie, big fan. Hey, let's start with Phil Collins of Genesis, drums and vocals. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw Genesis back in the day, but he rocked on the drums, and he can sing, too. Let's go to Rick Emmett with Triumph. Vocals, incredible. Guitar, saw him at the Tower. Oh, my God, one of the greatest dudes ever. Piano, Elton John, and vocals. And what about Cheap Trick, Robin Zander, bass and vocals?
Robin Zander, what? Besides vocals, what's the other one?
Bass, Cheap Trick.
Robin Zander plays bass?
Yeah, bass and well.
Tom Peterson plays bass in Cheap Trick.
He's got the 12-string bass.
That's Tom Peterson.
Hey, okay. Hey, don't forget Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, and, of course, Jimi Hendrix. You got to love his voice.
All good stuff, Rick. Thank you. Now, see, to Rick's call, first of all, Rick is way off on Cheap Trick because Tom Peterson's the bass player in Cheap Trick, and Tom sings lead vocal on a couple songs, but Tom doesn't have a great voice. It's kind of like a Keith Richards thing. Love Tom, but just being honest. Robin Zander, phenomenal voice, but basically just plays some rhythm guitar, so you can't put him there. And, he was ending by rattling off a lot of people who, again, certainly do two things. But as I said earlier, most bands have guys that do two things. That's not the criteria. They have to do two things extraordinarily well where you're conflicted as to what you like more. Now, him mentioning Jimi Hendrix is interesting because I always liked Hendrix's voice, and I feel that it's not talked about that much at all just because he was like one of the most pioneering guitar players ever, obviously. But even looking at that, if I was to kind of pull back on that, I think because his guitar playing was so groundbreaking, as much as I love his voice, I couldn't put him in this category either. But I do understand where he's going with that. But it just has to be something that's like, both things are just like mind-blowing. When I listen to a guy like Richie Kotzen who can play anything, and again, if you don't know Richie and his singing, I mean, he's recently shown up. He just saw him sing Cochise by Audioslave without a guitar in his hand. He is a mind-blowing guitar player. But vocally, if you really know his solo records and you listen to the Winery Dogs, vocally his voice is incredible as well. That to me, Richie is a guy that I can honestly say I struggle with what I like more, his playing or his guitar or his singing, because they're both just incredible. So that's like, to me, the perfect one where I couldn't tell you which I like more. And I feel that way about Dave Menichetti and Y&T as well. Sykes, who I also love both aspects of, and I mentioned before, his vocal stuff, he was a reluctant lead singer. And to most probably not considered a great singer, but I loved the tone of his voice. Even on this posthumously released song, there's that sort of, Sykes phrasing and tone to it that I just really like a lot in his vocal. But if I'm being honest with my own criteria, I would probably take John out or put him in third on my list because, he was a reluctant lead singer. He was not the lead singer in all his bands, but I just love his voice. But Kotzen and Meniketti for sure for me are there. Here's Will in Nashville. Go ahead, Will.
Eddie, the King of Las Vegas. Great to hear the show. I have two people for you. First is Tony McAlpine, the great guitar player. Works with Stevie Vai, a great guitar in his own right. And he is a fantastic keyboard player and works on keyboard as well. Just amazing. And the second is Gary Husband, who is maybe less well known, but is one of the best multi-instrumentalists in the business. He was with Level 42 playing drums for a while. Gary Moore, Jack Bruce, with John McLaughlin now. Just an amazing cat. Those are the two people that come to mind first.
Yeah, I don't know the second guy all that well, but I have heard Level 42 are these, are amazing musicians. Thank you, Will. I don't know if I'm the king of Las Vegas, but thank you. I think Paul Shortino has that title, even has the scepter. But yeah, Tony McAlpine, I never knew Tony played keyboards and was a really respected keyboard player until someone told me that. And, Tony had colon cancer, and there was a charity event to raise money for Tony's medical costs. And it was at the Wiltern Theater in L.A., probably 7-8 years ago at this point. Again, my timelines are terrible. But I hosted it. They asked me to host it, and I did. And I think Tony was not there because he was out of the country getting treatment. And thankfully, Tony's okay. But I remember somebody at that telling me that he was a great keyboard player. So that's an interesting one. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Fort Worth, Texas. Here's Rico joining us. Hi, Rico.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, man.
Speaking of McAlpine, that guy, you've been hearing a lot about that Red Devil Vortex band.
Mm-hmm.
Him and McAlpine, the guitar player for that band, and McAlpine, they've been working together, doing some stuff together.
Is that right? Cool. I met those guys recently here in Vegas, actually. They gave me a book with their stuff in it. So, okay, cool. So what do you got, Rico?
Yeah, okay. My top three is going to be three, one from each instrument, the bass, drums, and the guitar. First one's going to be Doug Pinnick.
Yeah.
King's X.
Good one.
And on drums, I've been following them since Hardline, and actually with Tony McAlpine is where I first heard his name, Gene Castronovo. Then I seen him
earlier. I mentioned him earlier. Yep.
When I heard him sing Mother, Father, he's the best singer Journey's had since Steve Perry, in my opinion. And then on guitar, Richie Kotzen. His voice is unbelievable, and I knew him for years and years as a shredder, and then I heard him with the Winery Dogs. It just blew me away.
Yeah, it's amazing with Kotzen, and thank you, Rico. And I mentioned Dean Castronova earlier. I'm telling you, Dean could easily just be the lead singer in Journey. I think he's probably not, because he's so used to being behind the drums. He's probably not used to being a front guy, and you want that element fronting a band, but he could easily do it, and he does sing lead vocals on some songs in the band. And then he had with that project band Revolution Saints, which he was the lead singer in as well. It's funny with Kotzen because when he came on the scene as a kid on Shrapnel Records, his first album or two was instrumental shred guitar, and then he started singing on those records, and I don't think people realized it. And those records were not, unless you're really deep into the guitar community and everything, most people did not know those records. And I admit I didn't either at that time. I thought the same thing. I knew him as a shred guitar guy. And I've told this story before. About 20 years ago, I first met Richie. I was contacted by a publicist, and she asked me if I would have him on. And I did not know him at all beyond knowing that he was this shred shrapnel guitar guy. But I said, sure, have him come in. And it was for my FM show in New York when I was doing that live, and I had him come into the studio. And I'll never forget, Mike Levine from Triumph was there that night, and Mike Piazza, the baseball player, was there that night. There's a picture of all of us. And that was the first time I met Richie on the air in the studio at my show. And I will never forget, we left the studio. He gave me his latest record at the time, which is one of my favorite records, called Into the Black. And he said, here, check this out. It's my latest record. And I put it in my CD player in my car, drove back to New Jersey from New York City. And my jaw was on the floor when I heard the vocal, to the point that I immediately texted him. And I was like, dude, I had no idea you could sing like this. He goes, yeah, most of my records have vocals. I'm like, what? And then I found out on that record and many of his records, not only does he sing, not only does he play all the guitar, he produces it, he writes it, he plays the drums, he plays the bass, he plays the keyboards. He plays everything. People talk about Wolfgang Van Halen doing that, and by the way, we could put Wolf in this conversation easily. But Richie has been doing that forever, playing everything on his records. It's a freak of freak situation, so I'm telling you. But still, even with those solo records, because they were independent and weren't hit records, people didn't know. And then when I suggested them for the Winery Dogs, and that first record came out with Elevate and all of that, the biggest response, and this is coming from somebody who was directly involved with those guys and that record, the biggest response we had from that record was, holy shit, I didn't know he could sing like that. And, meanwhile, he had sung on like 10 records previous, but people just didn't know the records. Yeah, it's next level. And if you're not aware of that record, Into the Black, I'm telling you, go check it out. It's online. I know he just released it on vinyl, actually. That record is insane, vocally especially. Here's Sean in Arizona. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Eddie, thanks, man. I got a couple guys. One of them was McAlpine, already mentioned, but I don't think you maybe didn't realize either. He played keys on the G3 tour in 2003, 2004.
Yeah, I don't.
With
it's funny, Sean, talking about Kotzen. Him and Tony McAlpine came out of the same scene, same label, early days, Shrapnel, all of that. Same period, right?
Years.
Yeah.
86 was Tony's first when I was introduced to him. Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I knew Tony played keys. I didn't know he was considered a great keyboard player, but clearly he is.
It was amazing to see on the G3 tour. It jammed a little bit toward the end of the show. And then one that really nobody probably knows, his name's Gabriel Guardian. He actually does play both simultaneously in concert. It's really, really cool.
What band is he in? Is he a solo act?
It started solo, does a lot of YouTube videos, but also has a band called Immortal Guardian, power metal kind of band. Yeah.
And when McAlpine did G3, did he play guitar at all, or was he exclusively on keys?
Just toward the end of the show, jammed a little bit with Vi, which was really cool. Because I've been, like I said, listening to Tony since the 86, and so it was really cool because he primarily does instrumental tours, plays a lot of Chopin during his shows on the keyboards, mostly guitar, doesn't do them both at the same time, but to see him as a background musician was just really cool and highlighted a little bit, but just an amazing all-around talented musician.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Sean. I'm going to give you one, too, that is a travesty that here we are in an hour and change into today's show that has not been mentioned by me or a caller. Now, obviously, a caller could be trying to get through with it right now. But my gosh, we have to talk about Glenn Hughes. I mean, Glenn Hughes, extraordinary singer to the point that, and still an extraordinary singer, and if we were doing the Freak Show, could absolutely be in the Freaks, But Glenn Hughes, a guy whose voice is so incredible that he is known as the voice of rock in England, and still an incredible singer, and also an incredible bass player. To that point, Joe Satriani made an album a few years ago, an instrumental record, which are most of Joe's records. And he had Glenn Hughes play bass on the record. He did not have him sing. And I said to Satch, who will be on with us again soon, by the way, with Steve Vai, they'll be on together, maybe as soon as next week, I believe. I said to Satch when he came on to promote that record, I said to Joe, I said, you may be the only person I ever met that had Glenn Hughes in a studio and you only had him play bass. You didn't have him sing. And he's like, yep, that was intentional. And I said, why? And he said, because his voice is so extraordinary that it overshadows his bass playing, which is also incredible. He goes, and I wanted to showcase just his bass playing because I think that gets overlooked because his voice is so great. And then, of course, when Satch and Vai did that song together recently, I Want to Play My Guitar, they then had Glenn only sing. And he's just the singer on that. He didn't play bass on it. So Joe Satriani has used Glenn and both of his extraordinary talents, which of course Glenn does together, but separated it and, broke it out individually. But Glenn Hughes definitely in this conversation, as anyone would tell you. Let's go to Dallas. Here's Jason joining us today. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Eddie. How you doing?
Good, Jason. Who do you have today?
I got Tom Keeper. He's awesome. He's a good singer. I don't know if I like his guitar playing better or if I like his voice. And my other one is Don Henley for the Eagles. He plays the drums, and he's a talented musician, too.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you... And I don't know, I don't have the answer to this because I know the Eagles' music, of course, and I know Don Henley is a lead singer on a lot of the material. But would you say that Don Henley is a great drummer? I mean, is Don Henley a guy that ever comes up in like the great drummers of all time conversations? I think because the Eagles' music is pretty laid back, I don't think he gets a lot of acclaim for his drumming. Now, I'm not a musician. I can't tell you the sparsity of that drumming, if he's considered a great drummer or not. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I don't ever hear him talked about as like this incredible drummer. Vocally, yes, people love his voice. But I don't know if he fits because of the playing aspect.
Right, because he does play drums, but I don't know if he's the greatest drummer, but, I feel like he deserves to, to show appreciation,
Yeah, no, I got you. But again, and thank you, Jason, for what we're doing today. We're really talking about people that both things are like, holy shit, they're so great. And don't get me wrong, Don Henley is a fine drummer for the Eagles in that style of music. And there's certainly an art to playing that way as well. But I never hear Don Henley talked about as one of the all-time great drummers ever. I think it fits the music and it's more than adequate for the music. So that's, again, you got to keep this in context. It's not just and you're entitled to your opinion if that's how you feel. I'm just saying, I really want to stay with the people that you scratch your head and like, my God, I don't know which one I like better, the playing or the singing or whatever the breakdown is. He brought up Tom Kiefer. That's a good one. Now, again, Tom, certainly not known as a guitar hero. So there's where the difference would be with Tom. With Tom, the lean would be more to the vocal than the guitar playing. However, Tom is a really good guitar player. His guitar solos are very tasty, very bluesy. But in Cinderella, Tom was not the only guitar player. Obviously, the late Jeff LaBar handled some of that as well. Tom also can play keys. Tom is a super talented guy. But I think in the case of Tom, his vocal probably overshadows everything. Let's get one more in here before a break. Here's Paul in Houston. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Eddie. Hey, Sebastian. I got a few here, if you'll indulge me. One of them are a couple of them are your buddies, Miles Kennedy and, of course, Wolfgang Van Halen. You got to go with Prince because he could do 23 instruments. You got Michael Sweet, Geddy Lee, Kip Winger, and that Elton John's been mentioned, but you got to go with Billy Joel as well. And my honorable mention is my all-time favorite, your mom and aunt's favorite, Elvis. He dabbled in the guitar a little bit in the 70s and a little bit when he was younger. I'm not saying he was the greatest, but he did do both.
Yeah, you can't, unfortunately, thank you, Paul, you can't put Elvis in there. I mean, because he was just, sparse guitar player. I mean, Elvis is the king. Nobody's going to argue that, but he was the quintessential frontman singer, not necessarily a musician in that sense. So I'd knock that one out with all respect to the king, who, by the way, that movie, that Lost Elvis live movie that Baz Luhrmann did is apparently in some theaters playing now, opens in IMAX tomorrow, and then opens everywhere the following Friday. And if you've seen some of that footage online, some of it done here in Vegas when he was doing residencies, it looks unbelievable. And they did all kinds of crazy restoration to it. So I'm real interested in seeing that. You mentioned Kip Winger. I love Kip. Kip is multi-talented. I wouldn't put Kip in here only because great singer, certainly plays bass well, can play everything. I mean, he does classical music. I think Kip kind of checks a lot of different boxes that he all does really, really well, but I don't know. I don't know about that one. And the other one that he put in, which is an obvious discussion point, is Geddy Lee. And here's where I would go with Geddy. Bass player, no question. Singer, very much an acquired taste. So I'm only just doing these analyses for the sake of what we're doing today. And I think I don't think you can have Geddy there because his voice is very polarizing. So you can't say it's a great voice when there's a contingency of people that just don't like it because it's an unusual voice. It's very high. I like it and I love Rush, but there's a lot of people that, vocally, I mean, he'll even tell you himself, he had to navigate his vocal style and adapt it to the music they were making. So Geddy, phenomenal musician, phenomenal bass player, keyboards, all of it. But I don't know if he goes in this only, of course, your personal taste, fine, but only looking in the big picture, I don't think you'd see him as a guy that would turn up on a lot of all-time great singers lists at all. Just like you don't see Don Henley turn up and discussed about the all-time great drummers. You don't see Geddy turn up in that way on all-time favorite singers by a mile. So that's why I feel that's a tough one. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll keep working at this. This is fun. Again, the great thing about doing shows like this is all the thoughts and discussion and debates that it inspires, and we'll continue doing it right after the break, talking about your favorite dual threats. And again, if you don't get through today, tomorrow's open phones free for all Friday to close the week. So you've got you can use your call for it tomorrow as well. We'll be right back after this break on Trunk Nation.
Message to every listener of Eddie Trunk.
You got to listen from the beginning to the end.
Very cool, very hip.
It's uncensored radio, so
Trunk Nation
is constantly surprising
with Eddie Trunk.
Talking dual threats to one musician that does at least two things extraordinarily well. Our friend Richard Christie sent a text during the show bringing up an artist that he loves and also came up, and that, of course, Michael Sweet, because Richard is a massive Striper fan, and it's a good call on Michael. Michael is a phenomenal guitar player and has that incredible voice and plays other instruments as well. Michael Sweet has said many times that he feels like his guitar playing gets overshadowed by his vocal. Somebody brought up Miles Kennedy earlier, and the interesting thing about that is the same deal. Miles is a guy whose vocal totally overshadows his guitar playing. And he will be the first to tell you that his passion is playing guitar. He has studied guitar. He is an accomplished guitar player. But because of that voice, he doesn't play a lot of guitar in a lot of his projects, which is why he started a solo career a few years ago, because on those solo records and when he tours solo, he is the lone guitar player. But in Slash's band, he basically plays hardly any guitar and rarely has a guitar when they play live. There are already two guitar players in that band, Slash and Frank Sidoris, so Miles doesn't even have a guitar in his hand. In Alter Bridge, I think Mark Tremonti plays the lion's share of the guitar, although Miles plays guitar pretty much the whole set and does take some solos. So if you know, but in his solo stuff, that's where he plays all the guitar, and that's his passion. It's just that he's blessed with that voice that everybody just wants to, that's just going to jump out over anything else he does. Kind of similar to Glenn Hughes, same deal. As a bass player, Glenn's playing is so overshadowed by the power of his voice. So those are some good ones. Let's go to Washington and welcome Lisa to the show. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
Hey, you're on the air.
Yes, I feel like Prince is a great musician and
for sure.
Vocals, of course. And how about John Fogerty? I mean, he wrote stuff and plays and does his vocals.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I just saw Fogerty very recently, Lisa, and he was still great. And thanks, Lisa. I mean, Fogerty, I love his voice. It's a cool voice. I don't necessarily know if he's considered one of the great singers. I don't think he's in that conversation. And same with guitar playing. Not in that. The thing with Fogerty is songwriting. You know, when you look at the CCR catalog, all of which he wrote, and then his solo career, I don't put Fogerty here because I think he does a lot of things good, but I think the thing he does best is make songs and create songs. And I don't see him in that way. Prince, 100%. Prince, Prince is like, he did everything. I mean, he was Kotzen in the pop R&B world, if you'd like. I mean, he does everything. And again, I like Prince's voice. I think Prince is looked at, again, just overall genius. Writing, producing, playing every instrument. I don't know if Prince is ever, as much as I love his voice, I don't know if he's ever in that conversation of great singers, if we're being honest. And until he did that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame performance of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I don't think enough people knew about his guitar playing. which is fantastic. I mean, it was, you know, to me, he was great equally at everything. But it's just weird how you frame him in this conversation. Because the other thing about his music is it did not feature a lot of lead guitar playing. Let's Go Crazy certainly did. The full-length version of When Doves Cry certainly had extended guitar solo in it. But we know from the live performances that Prince could play guitar. So it's just interesting. And I love his voice. But I just think of like these guys that the voice is like extraordinary when you hear it, when you have these kind of conversations. Ben in Atlanta. Go ahead, Ben.
Hey, this is a great theme for the show. Good choice here. I cannot restrict it to one guy, but I can restrict it to one band. So back
you don't have to. You don't have to. You can hit me with a couple. There's no something somebody did earlier, which I thought was pretty cool. Was they went with a bass player, a guitar player, and a keyboard player that all did other things. But there's no rules here. So whatever you want to do.
It was a good theme, yeah. So go back to the 70s with a long run of great albums and concerts, incredible. And that was Kerry Livgren of Kansas, keyboard player and guitarist extraordinary. I mean, very good at both, but a composer like you wouldn't believe. So Kerry Livgren, and right next to him playing keyboards also, typically more the organ instead of the piano or synth, was Steve Walsh. What a great singer. What a stage guy. But what a terrific, because he was a composer of half of the music on Kansas. So the keyboard playing, mostly organ playing, from Steve Walsh, and right there next to them is singing a third of their lead and playing violin when nobody was playing violin in rock and roll. And yeah, it's evolved a little bit more that you can find a little more presence of it, but so unique and so good, such masters of their instruments.
Yeah, the Steve Walsh one is real good for sure. I mean, Steve Walsh, what a voice on that guy. My gosh. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it. I mean, I say past tense because Steve Walsh retired from Kansas a number of years ago, and I got so much respect for this. Steve Walsh stepped away from Kansas because he admitted he could not do it anymore vocally. As he got older, like most people, vocals change. They can't do it anymore. The bar Steve Walsh set on that Kansas stuff was incredible. And then when he realized he couldn't get there anymore vocally, he didn't want to destroy his legacy, didn't want to fake it, didn't want to use electronics and tapes, he stepped aside and admitted the reason for doing so. And then just disappeared, gone. Like, I got so much respect for that. Knowing when to say when and not tarnishing your legacy. Now, I don't know enough about him as a musician, as a keyboard player, but I do know vocally he was extraordinary. You know, Steve Walsh also did a band called Streets. Didn't go anywhere, but they put out a couple records on Atlantic, probably late 80s. And that was really good too. That was more of a little more of a hard rock thing, actually. Let's say hi to Wally in New Jersey. Go ahead, Wally.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for taking my call. All right, now, since you just crushed me and all the other Rush fans with Geddy Lee, because just like you were saying, when you brought up Glenn Hughes, I'm like, I didn't even think of Glenn Hughes. I kept saying, anybody can talk about Geddy Lee? And then, of course, the Lynchster brought it up.
But do you agree? But Wally, let me stop you there, though. As a Rush guy, objectively, you agree with that. Like, I love Rush. You know that. You do as well. But you don't, if you use somebody like Glenn Hughes as a barometer, when you hear Glenn's voice is like next level, and his bass playing is so next level that Satriani only used him to play bass. You don't think of Geddy like that vocally. Geddy's voice is perfect for Rush, but it's not that sort of voice.
Gotcha. So you know what? I'm going to replace Geddy. And I'll give you David Gilmour for Pink Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant vocalist and one of the top 5 guitar players out there. I mean, top. And then I'm going to give you, and this is probably from one of your favorite bands. Now, you're probably going to disagree with me on this one. Paul Raymond from UFO. I know he was a rhythm guitar player, didn't play with all leads, but played keys, organ, did backup vocals, and then I'm going to give you my freak. I know Prince is up there. Everyone's brought that up.
Okay.
Steven Wilson from Porcupine Tree.
Mm-hmm.
That guy does everything.
But he's not 70 years old, right?
No, he's not 70.
That's my made up criteria. So yeah, he's not even close to that.
Not even close. But those guys, I think are right on that level in terms of, like I said with Paul Raymond, he's more in the background. But again, I've seen him live. I saw him when you introduced him at Starland. I've seen Steve Wilson live. Unbelievable musicians.
So Wally, good stuff. Thank you. I think, but where Wally is going is a different direction, because Wally is just going like all around great musicians when he's talking about somebody like Paul Raymond. For those that don't know who Paul Raymond was, and sadly he passed away a few years ago, Paul Raymond was the keyboardist, rhythm guitarist, backing vocalist, all-around utility guy for UFO during their classic period, and also with Michael Schenker Group. Before that, he was in a band called Savoy Brown. I loved Paul Raymond. I think Paul Raymond filled a tremendously useful purpose in UFO, filled out the sound perfectly. I've said many times, I don't think a hard rock band has ever utilized keyboards better than UFO did. Not too much, not too little, perfect shading on some of the songs. Paul Raymond, the backing vocals, when there wasn't keys in the song, could chunk out the rhythm guitar and support Michael or Paul Raymond or Paul Chapman, whoever was on guitar at the time. So I love Paul Raymond. But Paul Raymond did a lot of things well. I don't think Paul Raymond's in this conversation because I don't think he did one thing where you're like, oh my God, he was not a lead guitar player. He was, his keyboard playing was more shading and different styles. His lead vocal was more supporting, backing lead vocal. So I can't put him there as much as I love him. David Gilmour, different story. I think that's a good one, and I think that's a good oversight. David Gilmour, phenomenal guitar player, and also an incredible voice. So that's a good one. And, look, when you're talking about Pink Floyd, might be some people yelling at the radio right now saying, well, what about Roger Waters? Bass, lead vocal as well. I'm not some Pink Floyd mega fan, so I can't say one way or the other on that, but you could make that argument. But I definitely think Gilmour fits the bill. Here's John in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Eddie. Great to talk to you again.
Thank you.
So I had a bunch of the same ones, but I tried to find some different ones that nobody has said yet. So how about Tommy Shaw? James Hetfield.
I think Tommy Shaw is a very underrated guitar player. Vocally, he's a freak still. I just saw him. We just had him on the show. I don't know as much as I love his guitar playing. In Styx, you got JY taking some of the guitar playing, and now Will, the producer, the third guy in there. So I love Tommy, but Tommy was never thought of as a guitar hero, guitar star. I think Tommy was more about the vocal than anything, at least the way it's perceived. But I don't feel like Tommy is there on the guitar side. As much as I love his playing.
James Hetfield or Lenny Kravitz?
Okay, so Hetfield is interesting because to me, Hetfield gets there from a playing standpoint, because even though he's not a lead guitar player, guitar players will tell you Hetfield is an insane rhythm guitar player. So I think on the playing side he gets there. I think on the vocal side he does not. His voice, again, much like Rush, Hetfield is perfect for Metallica. But I don't think there's anybody on the planet, and thank you, John, including James himself, who would sit there and tell you he's a great lead singer. So that's why I got to pull him out. Lenny Kravitz, I love his voice. Kravitz is almost like a Kotzen, a Prince, a Wolfgang Van Halen, where on the records they do almost everything and can play everything. And if you go see Lenny live, and I just did, it is crazy because there are points in the show where he will go around to different stations and pick up a bass and pretty much plays something throughout the show live except for drums, which he can do and does on the records. I love his voice. I love his guitar playing. He is not the only guitar player on his records or live. He's had Craig Ross there forever. So as much as I love Lenny, Lenny to me is one of these guys that does a lot of things really well. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I could put him there because I don't think, he's never in that conversation of all-time great guitar players. He's never in that conversation of all-time great singers. Although I love him doing both of those, I just don't feel like he's there because he is so diverse. Musically, he's very diverse, and his ability is so diverse that I don't know if I'm making sense, but if you I just don't feel like it's not a guy that's just like two things that blow your mind, each equally amazing. I think there's maybe both things really well for him, but again, that's my take. Here is Chris in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Eddie. Thank you for taking my call. Hey, real quick, I agree with you on Richie Kotzen. I always thought, could you imagine if he went out with The Revolution and did Prince's work? That's one thing. And the other thing is, I'm from the Lehigh Valley. So in the late 80s, I saw his last show before he moved to California. At that time, he was either joining or leaving a band called Arthur's Attic, but he was like a hair metal guy. Yeah. But anyway, the guy that I have for you is Warren Haynes. He's one of the greatest guitarists. It's a crime that he's not on the Rolling Stone list, but he's an incredible guitarist, and he's an incredible vocalist. His song Soulshine, his version is just as good as Greg Allman's. And his covers are incredible. His one from U2, it's much better than U2. Into the Mystic, 40 Days in the Hole. He's just great. And one other thing, I know I'm taking up a lot of time, is no one's talking about Steve Winwood. And I saw Steve Winwood blow Eric Clapton off the stage in concert at Madison Square Garden. Peace out.
Thank you, Chris. Well, I know Warren Haynes. Warren Haynes is a super talented guy, real nice guy as well. So good call on that. I'm not sure how Winwood blew off Clapton. I don't know in what capacity, but that's his opinion. Mike in Ohio. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Eddie. Great to talk to you. One maybe a little off the radar, Matt Bellamy from Muse. Great guitarist, really good on the keys, and I personally think he's got a great voice, too. So that was my choice.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the Muse hits and the songs you hear. I've heard they're great. I've heard they're great live. I've never seen them live. I'd like to, but I've heard good things about them, and I'd like to check them out from what. And they've got a heavier side to them than I think people realize from what I've seen and heard. Right?
Yeah, and they got a softer side too. I saw them when they were coming up in a very small gymnasium, and he was just great. Just stole the show with his ability on the keyboards, really, and his voice is just so good.
All right, Mike, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Here is Sophia in Connecticut. Hi, Sophia.
Hi, Eddie. How are you?
Hey, great.
I think it was Chris from Pennsylvania who stole my pick, who was Warren Haynes. And I just wanted to say I have seen Warren twice in concert with his band Government Mule. And he, I just can't elaborate enough how great of a guitar player he is.
Yes, and a great singer.
Oh my, he's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the only one you wanted to throw out is Warren?
Warren and Greg Allman from the Allman Brothers.
All right. Well, obviously tied together there. So thank you, Sophia. Appreciate it. Good call on that. Little Southern rock love here in the later stages of the show. Again, we're talking dual threats, people that do two things extraordinarily well in a band. And getting some good stuff. And getting a lot of, I feel like, callers we don't normally hear from and newer people and getting some women involved. Love it. Let's go to West Virginia. Here's Evan joining us today. Go ahead, Evan.
Hey, Eddie. I've got a couple. I don't think anybody has said Rick Emmett from Triumphant.
Somebody early on voice. Did. Early on.
Great voice, great guitar player. Richie Sambora is definitely one that I would think would be definitely in that conversation. And one of the guys who I think is underrated as a singer, but he's a fantastic guitar player, Mark Tremonti, for sure.
Well, Tremonti, because of him going and doing this Sinatra stuff, we talked about it with Zach last week, if you listened to that interview, because Mark started recently doing shows where he sings Sinatra. Thank you, Evan. I think has opened a lot of eyes to his vocals. Now, on Alter Bridge records, Mark usually had lead vocal maybe on one of the songs on the record. That's usually the norm. He took one lead vocal, Miles did the rest. Same thing on the newest record, although they do a couple trade-off vocal things too. I think over the years, Mark has gotten way more confident and comfortable as a lead singer and has certainly gotten better. But to me, Mark's not there because he is predominantly still known as a guitar player first and foremost. However, again, because of the Sinatra stuff and how well he can do that, I think that's shifting. Richie Sambora, I love Richie's playing and I love his voice, but outside of his solo records, not known as a lead singer. Now, he was the lead singer in the band he was in, I believe, before Bon Jovi. And then in Bon Jovi, he did a ton of singing with John. But there, off the top of my head, I'm pretty certain of this, there is not a Bon Jovi song where he sings lead vocals. You know, it's not like, to my knowledge, now on maybe a couple of the later records before he left the band, I could be wrong because I don't know those records as well, but I know pretty much all the Bon Jovi records. I don't think there was ever one song on one Bon Jovi record where Richie Sambora was the lead singer. We know he trades off with John on songs, Wanted Dead or Alive, I'll Be There For You. Yes, but he's not the lead singer exclusively on those songs. So kind of like where Alter Bridge, Mark would take a song, Richie never did in Bon Jovi. He did on his solo records, obviously. So I don't think you can put Richie there because for that reason. He's not predominantly a lead singer in the main band he's known for. Although his voice is phenomenal. I mean, there are people that said many, many times, I mean, you know, I heard it even growing up in New Jersey as Bon Jovi was coming up, that Richie's actually a better singer than John. Richie's voice is amazing, and it is. But obviously it was John's thing and John's band, and John was the front man. And, you know, making that decision and working Bon Jovi the way they did certainly did not hurt them at all. Certainly they kind of made it. Here's Chris in Alabama. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, man, this guy gets overlooked big time. Mr. Damon Johnson from Brother Kane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Damon playing in Skynyrd now, obviously really showcasing his guitar ability, and he does have a great voice as well, and he's doing Brother Kane again.
Yeah, he's played with everybody, though. He's played with Thin Lizzy. He played with Alice Cooper. He's a fantastic guitar player.
Yep, and singer. Yeah, that's a good call. And I agree, Chris. He is not in that conversation enough. I appreciate it. I think he's getting more acclaim for his guitar playing now because stepping into Skynyrd a few years ago for the late Gary Rossington. So good call there. Dave in New York. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, what's up, buddy? How are you?
Hey, man.
Yeah, this is actually like really, really difficult the more I thought about it, because it's almost like you're looking for someone who's like Eddie Van Halen and Freddie Mercury at the same time. Like I almost wish that you weren't doing a rock show, because then I would just tell you like Coltrane or Miles Davis. But as far as rock, well, first of all, how about like Phil Collins, who not only was a dual threat with drums and singing, but he also had a full-time solo career and Genesis when they're both huge, something that is never going to happen again. You got, if you want to count this, you got Michael Anthony on bass and background vocals, which, I mean, he's almost better as a background vocalist than a bassist. You have Todd Rundgren. I think he played most of his instruments. Alan Parsons. Well, he was he's known as being a sound engineer as well as his own group. I think he does some of the instruments. And honestly, this is not a rock artist, but Lady Gaga is actually a really good piano player, and she primarily plays piano when she does these jazz and standard tours where she just plays old, like 30s and 40s music, and that's what she actually shows what a good instrumentalist she actually is. And of course, she's already known for the singing. So, those are my picks in there. I'd have to think you'd like the Michael Anthony one, because.
Yeah, well, the thing, and thank you, Dave, appreciate it. The thing with Michael is, again, not a lead singer. Now, I believe Michael was the lead singer in the band he was in before Van Halen, but not a lead singer, but a massively important part of the Van Halen sound with his voice. And I'll tell you, I went down the YouTube rabbit hole for a bit last night. Saw this fan-made documentary about the 88 Monsters of Rock tour. It's like they cobbled together a bunch of MTV interviews. That was kind of interesting. And I also, though, this has been up for a while. You've probably seen it on YouTube. There is a video of Van Halen in 1984 playing in England on what was also, it's funny, there's like multiple things called Monsters of Rock. The download, so there's the Monsters of Rock tour. Of course, now there's the cruise, but there was the tour, of course, with Van Halen headlining in 88. Scorpions, Metallica, Doc, and all that. But the Download Festival, as it's now called in England, used to be called the Monsters of Rock Festival. And there is footage of them playing that in 84, opening for AC/DC. And it's really cool if you've seen it, because you see them talking backstage, you see them walking up the stairs. It's one person with the camera in the wings of the stage. It reminded me of what I did for Anthrax in 87 at that same exact festival, where Scott Ian handed me his video camera and made me shoot them the whole time. The exact camera thing and the exact thing I shot for Anthrax 3 years later at that same festival. So that was tripping me out. But you see Michael Anthony, and to my point that we always come up with David Lee Roth, David Lee Roth is jumping all over the stage, barely singing in 84. And thank God Michael Anthony was there holding down some backing vocals and some semblance of actual singing, because Roth was just like singing every third word back in 84. So, yeah, Michael on the vocal end, super important, but obviously not known as a lead singer, so that's the difference there. Hey, this was too much fun. I am sorry if I did not get to you. We are back tomorrow. It's officially Free For All Friday, but if you didn't get through and you want to jump in on this topic tomorrow's all good as well. Talk to you then, starting at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific. here on Faction Talk, Sirius XM Channel 103, or the Sirius XM app. Hope you are doing well and having a good Tuesday. For many, the first day of the week. For me as well. It's always nice you get those 3-day weekends. Yesterday, of course, being President's Day holiday. For many, a day off. And for me, it was, which was nice. Got to get a little extra downtime. Always nice to have a 4-day work week, so hopefully that was the case for you guys as well. But we're back at it today, live on this Tuesday, 17th day of February, 2026, and we are here to talk rock with you today and throughout the week, live every day, starting at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific, and, of course, anytime live or on demand using the SiriusXM app. Hope you had a good long weekend if you had that, or abbreviated weekend, whatever the case may be. And appreciate you guys hanging with me as always. There's a good amount of news to get into to start the week here. Coming off of the long weekend, there's a good amount of things going on in the world of rock. As far as the weekend was concerned, I saw Criss Angel the other night, who, of course, has become a good friend in recent years and legendary magician. Recently did the whole Kiss deal at the Kennedy Center. And I went to his show the other night, and I went and gave him an award on behalf of the Dio Cancer Fund, which Wendy Dio had asked me to give to him, because Criss does a lot of charitable work for cancer research. He has a young son who had battled cancer, who thankfully is okay. And Criss does tremendous work for pediatric cancer and fundraising and awareness in his shows for it. So Wendy had given me this award to give to him, and I texted him. I said, hey, I want to come down and give you this. So I did, and it was great to see him, and I watched his show, which I hadn't seen in a little bit. And then we talked for a while about his coming shows with Alice Cooper, which, of course, we had him on, and we had Alice on separately talking about these shows where Criss is developing magic and illusions around Alice Cooper and his band actually playing a live show. So Criss was telling me about some of that. And what he told me, which I had no idea, was that Alice and his band were here much of last week, rehearsing and going through run-throughs for that coming show. So I was unaware of that because I would have reached out to Alice to come on. But then again, he was here to do rehearsals for the show here with Criss. So anyway, I don't know if it would have worked out schedule-wise, but I had no idea, and I just missed Alice being here. But I think Criss told me there's a total of 9 shows right now over like 3 or 4 weekends, first couple being in early March, which unfortunately I won't be able to make those initial shows because I will be doing speaking gigs in Ohio, which are on my website, and I hope you come by and see me if you are in those areas of Ohio. So because of that, I can't make the initial shows, but I'll catch one of those shows before they're done, and I'm actually greatly looking forward to it. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be really cool. I know everybody's putting a lot of work into it, and I know Criss is super passionate about it, and he told me a lot about it the other night when I saw him on, was it Saturday? I think it was Saturday night. Yeah, this past Saturday. So anyway, no, it was Sunday night I saw Criss. I'm getting screwed up since today's Tuesday. But anyway, it was great to talk to him and get a little insight on those shows. And he wants to come on the air with us in the very near future to give a little update now that they've done a bunch of rehearsals on what this is going to look like. And I believe there's maybe 2 shows left that are not sold out at the theater here in Planet Hollywood that this will be happening. So it's a limited thing. It's not going to go on forever. Alice has a big schedule. Criss has his regular show, Mind Freak, but it's a pretty unique, cool thing. And we'll maybe do another round of discussing it with Criss and get more insights now that it's starting to really take shape a little bit more. So I'll let you know about that. Saw my buddy Carrot Top the other day, last night. It was always good to visit and check up with him and get caught up with him. Hysterical as usual. He was telling me that he wants to come back on the show. And we'll do this sooner than later. Now, you know, with Carrot Top, we did the Heaven's House Band bit, which was his idea. Now he wants to do a Mount Rushmore show. So we were hashing out what that would look like when I was talking to him last night. And we're going to fine-tune that a little bit, and we're looking at doing that sooner than later on the air. So we should have both of those guys, legendary Vegas entertainers and residencies, coming on back on the air with us soon. It's funny because I use the term residency, and I say this all the time, and you've heard me say it on the air many times. There is a thing now where bands come into Vegas and they do like 3 shows and they call it a residency. It's not a residency, but it's become a buzzword. Residencies are when you do, months, years. And Carrot Top has a bit in his show where he goofs on that because he has been doing his show. This is amazing. He's been doing his show in Vegas for 35 years. He has been here. And he has been in the casino he's in now, the Luxor, for 20 years. And he puts up on the screen during his concert that he has done 35 years and nearly 20,000 shows in Vegas. And he's like, that's a residency. He goes, Adele comes into town and does 6 shows and says, it's a residency. No, it's not. So I thought that was funny. I was like, yeah, I say the same thing all the time, and I don't do residencies. So it was pretty funny. But anyway, look forward to those guys coming back on. I am still trying to wrangle the Def Leppard guys and hopefully have them on maybe even as soon as this week. I am intentionally holding the rest of this week open because of, as usual, there's a bunch of stuff floating around. So I'm not sure what's, who is or isn't coming on. And there's still some, and I just got a text a minute ago from Vivian Campbell, so I got to follow up on that during the commercial break. But I'm hoping I get Viv and or Phil between, maybe this could happen any minute, because they're here all month still doing their residency. So it could be tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. I don't know. I'm trying to lock it down. I'm going to go over there and see those guys tonight. So maybe I'll get it locked down tonight, and it could happen very quickly. So I'll let you know as soon as I do. As I always tell you, keep an eye on my social media at Eddie Trunk, X, Instagram, and the Facebook page. As soon as stuff breaks, I will post there to let you know. But hoping for somebody from Def Leppard before they wrap up this run, which is now a little more than halfway done, as they continue through the end of February at Caesars Palace. So a lot going on here in Vegas as usual. Keep you posted as we go. Now, diving into news today, and we're going to keep things open today, so we've got a lot of time for your calls, officially free-for-all mode. You want to get on the air on anything, 844-686-5863 as usual. And we'll get to your phones here in a minute after I get you caught up on some news coming off the weekend. And diving in on that and the theme of Vegas and the theme of residencies, couple things floating around. We are still waiting for Metallica, who are heavily rumored to be going into the Sphere, to announce that. Still no official announcement. But the other thing that started bubbling a little bit, and I think this came from an interview that Danny Carey did, the drummer from Tool, saying that they are very open and interested in going into the Sphere. And it seems like there's dialogue going on with that, which could be super cool if it happened because, as you know, Tool have very, very strong visuals to what they do. A lot of those visuals driven by my bowling partner, Adam Jones, the band's guitar player. So we will see if that comes to fruition. Now, it used to be the business model of the Sphere would be that in order to go in there and have it make financial sense, you have to be able to play like 10, 15 shows and basically sell them all out in a place that holds nearly 20,000 people. Well, that's kind of shifted a little bit because you are seeing bands go in there for 2 or 4 shows, leave, and then 3-6 months later come back, do 2-4 shows, leave. So that's a little bit of a revision on the business model. The reason why it's like that is because in order to use all the visual aspects of the Sphere and build that out, it costs a tremendous amount of money, so you need to be able to do enough shows to recoup that. But once they build the program around your music, then they can just plug it in when you show up and play. I don't know how it works, but it would almost be, I think, like plugging in probably a super high-tech SD card into the Sphere. You've seen Fish do that. The jam band Fish has kind of been doing that. So that would be, I would think, the business model Tool would announce. But then again, I'm seeing bands do crazy business in there that I never thought were big enough to do that. Like No Doubt has sold out like 14 shows or something. So who knows? Maybe they could do a really extensive run. Joel's telling me that the interview that Denny Carey said where this was revealed was on a podcast called Spiral Out. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if Tool ends up going in there. But I think before anything, we're probably going to get a Metallica announcement, and that would make them the first heavy rock band to play there. Again, we're still waiting. And not that it's a huge deal, but we still have not had a heavy rock band go in there, a hard rock band of any kind, and waiting to see who the first will be. I'm still saying odds on it'll be Metallica, but now Tool has entered the discussion. Again, staying with a Vegas theme to open the show, Scorpions, who love Vegas and love playing the theater in Planet Hollywood on a recurring basis, have announced another residency in that same venue. This, I believe, is maybe the 4th, and we've covered them all. We've had them on for every single one, and we'll probably have them on for this one as well. Like the previous one, the opening act will be Buck Cherry. So this is basically a redo of exactly the same bill that they had when they were here last time. I say here because I am in Vegas right now. Again, Planet Hollywood, the dates are September 17th through October 3rd. There are days off, as is the norm, especially for an older band between shows. So over that run of almost 3 weeks, Scorpions will perform a total of 8 shows spread out in that window. Again, it kicks off September 17th. The general on sale for tickets is this coming Friday. And as I said, I am sure when those guys get here, we will have them in studio again. Last time we had Klaus, Matthias, and Rudy, the big 3, sitting in the Vegas studio with us. You can see that right now on YouTube, and you can also hear it, of course, on the SiriusXM app. So Scorpions, who have, like I've said many times, especially for older bands, great allure to not tour, not have to get on buses, not have to get on planes, go to one city, one venue, stay there for a few weeks, and have the fans come to you. If you can pull it off, it is a huge deal